Hey, good morning, everybody. If you can hear me, would you just let me know that in the chat box, please? Hey, Melissa, Mary, Sariella, Lori, Janine, Ashley, welcome. Janet, welcome. Leanne, Noelle, awesome. Got teachers from all over, so exciting. Carmen, welcome. Can hear. Super. All right, looks like we are good. I'm so happy to be here with you today. We've got a couple of minutes before we get going, and some of you are already doing this, but I would love to know in the chat box where in the world you are joining us from, and then also what grade you're going to be teaching either currently if you're already in school or this upcoming school year. So would love to know. Hey, Renee, it's going fast. I know I'm missing people. Melanie, welcome. Genevieve, we got some, I see US teachers from all over, some Canadian teachers. Hey, Karen, Anita, Miranda, Stephanie, hey, in Tennessee, awesome. Abby in DeKalb, I know where that is. Oh gosh, it's going fast. Hey, Ashley, Stacy, Anita, Lori, Susan, couple of Susans. Hey, Cindy. Yeah, I assume most everybody is kindergarten since this is a kindergarten webinar, but I know that we also have some special education teachers, transitional kindergarten, pre-K, I see. Awesome. So happy to have you all here. Donna says teaching kindergarten for the first time next year. That's exciting. I love kindergarten. Kindergarten is my favorite. Hey, Kim, my home state, Tennessee, welcome. Hey, Shelly in St. Charles, welcome, Shelly. Natalie, another Illinois teacher. Lisa is a TK transitional kindergarten teacher. Awesome. Hey, Katrina in South Carolina. Sue's teaching combo pre-K kindergarten. Exciting. Suzette says, our district is meeting today to determine how we will begin school for this school year. Yes, I know some of us don't know what we're doing next year yet. Wendy says, shout out to all the admin. Yep, welcome administrators too. Julie's a reading specialist. Awesome. Looks like we've got a good mix of a lot of kinder, ESOL teacher. Awesome, Monique. Candida is a dual language teacher. Very cool. Wendy, so the slides should say kindergarten. We're doing the first and second grade webinar tonight. So hopefully I sent the correct slides. It should say kindergarten. I can give you the link here in the Dropbox if it is the wrong grade level. Okay, so here are the slides link. Awesome. Elsa, kindergarten, Austin. Jenny in Kentucky. Hey, Teresa in Northern Illinois. So happy to have you here. We've got teachers from all over California, Atlanta. Hey, Bettina. Awesome. All right. Well, it is that time. It's 10 o'clock my time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have kind of a unique topic, one that I wasn't necessarily planning on doing, but school right now is going to look different. And so this webinar is really going to focus on adapting your kindergarten or pre-K or whatever age level you're working with, mostly focused on kindergarten, adapting your instruction to this new normal. So I'm really happy to have you here with me. I hope that this is helpful. I know that this is just a stressful time, and so I appreciate you joining me, and I hope that this will just kind of help ease some of your stress. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you. Okay, so we are here for the kindergarten session. Again, there's one for first and second grade later tonight. Couple of housekeeping items before we really dive in. So hopefully it will be smooth sailing, but we have a number of teachers on today, and sometimes that can cause connection issues. So if you have a connection issue, often there's nothing that I can do about it, but there is a reconnect button on your end. And so you may need to press that reconnect button if you lose sound, if something, doesn't go quite right. There should be that connect button there for you. And then you can also always go back into the original email that had the invitation with the link. You can always rejoin from there. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully it will be smooth sailing. I did put the kindergarten slides link. I guess I sent the wrong one out most recently. Sorry about that. But here is the slides link should you need that. And then also Megan is helping us. Thank you so much, Megan. She's giving you the slides link in the chat right now. So Megan will be here with us to help with links and stuff like that. Okay, so anything else housekeeping? Oh, make sure all your browser tabs are closed. There's nothing else going on your computer because that can cause issues as well. The software that they recommend for this is Google Chrome, the Google Chrome browser. So if you are having issues, might be a good idea to try in there. And then also just about the chat. So couple of things. Number one, the chat is a little lag, or rather what you're hearing me say right now, I actually said like 10 to 20 seconds ago. So there is that to consider with the chat. Sometimes it does lock up, unfortunately, just when we have a lot of people on here. So if it's not working for you, I apologize. It is kind of an ongoing issue, but you can always, just keep trying. And then the other good thing is too, even if you're not able to chat, you're still going to be entered into our giveaway at the end. So no worries about that. Apologies if it locks up. It just sometimes happens. Throughout, I will miss things in the chat, but I would encourage you to use it, add on to what I'm saying, ask questions, answer each other's questions. I will miss things just because it can tend to go quickly, but I stop at the very end. I stop, I think, like at least one time during and then at the very end, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I missed. But just know that if I do miss your question, totally unintentional, and we will absolutely have time at the end to address questions. Okay, so I think that's all for housekeeping, and I just want to welcome you. If you've been on a webinar with me before, welcome back. I know you know me already, but if you're new, welcome. So excited to have you join me. I'm Allison. My default thing is to say that I'm a reading specialist, which I am a reading specialist, but I'm also now the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at a small private school in Tennessee that's opening up for the first time in just about 2 months. So I'll be Director of Curriculum and Instruction for K through 6th. My husband and I, Jonathan, live in the Nashville suburbs with our 2 little fur babies. I miss getting together with friends. That used to be one of my favorite things to do. I love reading, love being outdoors, hiking. Obviously, pandemic has kind of shifted some of my hobbies, but that's me personally. And before I was in a role as a reading specialist and Director of Curriculum and Instruction, I taught pre-K, I taught kindergarten, 1st and 2nd in the classroom. So the primary grades are definitely where my heart is, and I hate to pick favorites, but kindergarten really is my favorite. So I love that we get to just focus on kindergarten today. So that's me. And now I would love to hear from you. I'm going to put a little poll up, and the poll says, what is your school doing to start the school year? So I listed completely normal school procedures, remote learning, some days at school, some days remote. At school, but kids must stay apart from each other. At school, kids can be near each other, but our contact with other groups is limited. So I kind of want to get a sense of what our group is, more or less. The ideas that I'm going to share really are flexible, and I believe that you can use them no matter what your current situation is or what your situation changes to, but I just kind of want to get a read and see where everybody's at. So that's interesting. I'm surprised. So right now I'm seeing that a lot of people are doing some days at school and some days remote learning. We've got some that are remote learning, and we've got some that are like distanced from each other at school. If you put something different, I'm curious. I think what I meant to do was include an option that says don't know yet. So I'm guessing that a lot of you, I'm seeing a lot of you don't know yet. Pamela says hoping to be in the building with many new procedures, may divide classes. Got it. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't know yet. So definitely a different start to the school year for sure. But thank you for sharing that with me in the little poll here. Definitely helpful, and I'll keep that in mind as we go through everything today. So before I go over the agenda and kind of share what we're going to talk about, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the situation that we're in. And, specifically, I mean, here in the US, I know we have teachers from all over, but in the US, we're kind of in a unique situation because of the number of cases of COVID. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that none of us wants to be here. And I don't mean, here together. I'm so glad to be here with you, but we have serious questions. We have big concerns about distance learning. We have big concerns about being in school. Either situation right now is really not feeling ideal. But for today, for the next hour, what I'd like us to focus on are the things that are somewhat in our control. The ways that we can support our students emotionally and academically. So are we all on the same page for that? Because what I'd really like to do is I want to support you with the things that I can help with. Obviously, none of us, there's just so much that's out of our control right now. But what I'd really love for us to focus on are the things that we can control and the ways that we can support our students. So let me know if you're with me on that. I know that this is just not an ideal situation, to say the least, but we'll get through this. Okay, so here are my goals for us today. By the end of the webinar, I want you to have some ideas about how to create a warm, supportive classroom environment. And I mean that in a very broad sense, because we might be with our students and we might not be with our students, and we can still do things to create that sense of community, even if it's not necessarily what we're used to. I also want to have you walk away with some ideas about what to focus on when teaching literacy in this new and very unique situation, because I actually think that we have to think about school and what we're doing differently. And I'm going to share what I mean in a little bit. I also want you to have some ideas for teaching literacy in what I called less than ideal conditions. So kind of working with, maybe we're distance learning, maybe we're at school, but, things don't look the same. I'm going to address all of that and give you some ideas that hopefully will help you in any of those situations. We're also going to talk a little bit about how to get started with assessment and setting up your routines, just because, again, things are different and we need to adapt. So I hope that you walk away today just feeling a little bit less stressed and just a little bit more equipped. Like you say, I have things that I can pull out of my bag of tricks if this happens. I have things that I can pull out of my bag of tricks if this happens, because honestly, we don't know what's going to happen unless your school has said, okay, we're doing distance learning all year long, then you might know. But basically, I just want you to feel a little bit more prepared and have some things to use this year, no matter what it looks like. So we're going to go about an hour, and then I have 2 rewards for you for staying till the end. So number 1, I mentioned this earlier, I'm actually going to be doing a giveaway at the end, and everybody who is here live will automatically be entered. So hope you can stick around for that. The giveaway prize today is an extra special thing. It is a 6-month membership to my Kindergarten Literacy Club, and I'll tell you more about that later. But the Kindergarten Literacy Club, it gives you stuff to use with your kids, modified for COVID, pandemic, whatever, but it also gives you ongoing support. So it gives you more of these type of webinars, Q&A sessions, just ongoing support to be there for you throughout the entire school year, not just today for an hour. So my winners, I'm going to have multiple winners that get 6-month memberships to the Kindergarten Literacy Club. So very exciting. I've also got a freebie for you with some stuff that you can share with parents, and that will be shared at the end as well. So that is coming up. Okay, so as I mentioned, I really wanted to start today, and I'm a literacy specialist. I love teaching about literacy, and we're going to get there. We're going to talk about literacy, but I think that we can all agree that one of our biggest jobs this year, it always is our job, but especially this year, is to support our students emotionally and to create that classroom environment where they feel safe. And again, when I'm saying environment, I don't necessarily mean a physical environment. It could be virtual. But I wanted to start today by talking about this stuff because I think that this is the most important thing that we can do when we're starting off the year and also throughout the year. Okay, so my first little point here is that this year, obviously, as I've said, is going to be probably stressful. And I would encourage you to really focus on taking care of yourself and your own needs so that you do have the emotional and physical energy to create that positive atmosphere in your classroom, your virtual classroom, whatever. So it all kind of starts with us, right? Like this pandemic has put stress on all of us. It's put stress on the kids. It's put stress on us, but we need to take care of ourselves so that we can really show up for our kids and we can model how to make the best of a not ideal situation. But if you yourself are feeling really anxious and emotionally drained, that's going to be so much harder to do, right? It's going to be so much harder to put on a happy face if we are just not feeling it ourselves, right? So I would encourage you to actually double up on the stuff that you do for yourself. So things that I like to take walks by myself so I can think. I like to practice yoga, even just eating healthy and like taking time to read, doing things you enjoy. I would really encourage you to kind of double up on that stuff this year, just because you are going to need to have a full cup in order to give to your students. So I want to mention that first and foremost. And when it comes to supporting the family, something that you could consider doing, because they may be feeling extra apprehensive this year as well, is to consider sending out a letter or an email ahead of the school year. And if you are going to be in the classroom and if you're going to be wearing a mask to teach, I would consider including a photograph of your entire face. I know that if, assuming my school is in session in person, I'm going to, because I'm still going to be seeing some students for reading intervention, I'm going to actually, which seems weird, I'm going to actually put a photo of my face on the wall, because then if I'm wearing a mask, they can kind of just connect like, okay, like this is still Mrs. Ryan. Because one of my, biggest concerns has been like, well, I don't want them to be afraid of me, but if I'm wearing the mask and we've got a photograph on the wall, then that's just kind of like that, human connection, even though of course it's still a human under the mask. So just something to think about. Also, if you're going to be doing remote learning, or even if you're not, I would consider making a video for your students before school starts. And this video would be like of you just saying like, hey, I'm Mrs. Ryan. I'm so excited to meet you this school year. On the first day of kindergarten, something we're going to be doing is X, Y, and Z, and just keep it short. Now, I know that being on video can feel really uncomfortable. I know that I used to feel extraordinarily uncomfortable on video. It's still not my favorite thing in the world to do, to be honest. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. So if this is something that you are able to do, try to push past that level of like discomfort, especially if you're doing remote learning, you're going to be doing it a lot, and just focus when you're making the video, focus on serving your kids and don't focus on how you come across in the video, because I know, I understand that feeling of self-consciousness for sure, but it could make your students feel more comfortable. Okay, so once school opens, whether that's in person or remotely, I love to choose my words very carefully to try to create excitement and joy, especially during those first few days. And I am praising my kinders constantly. Oh my goodness, John sat in the right seat. He's waiting quietly. Kevin opened his backpack and got everything ready. Alicia did this, just pointing out what the kids are doing and really praising them for it. Now that is going to be different if they're joining you on Zoom, right? Like that might be like, oh my goodness, I see that Marie is ready with her mom, or, we're going to have to adapt it if it's virtual and not in person. But the more you can personally acknowledge students, and especially if we're doing distance learning, the more you can try to build that one-on-one connection, the better. If you can have like one-on-one meetings with your kids, I know if you have a lot of students, it becomes complicated. But if you're doing remote learning, the more like one-on-one time or small group time you can have with your kids, I feel like the better, because it just feels different when there's you and a ton of kids on Zoom, right? It feels different than when you're when you're with them in the classroom. The eye contact is different. The physical touch, it's not there. So the more you can build and focus on those personal relationships, the better. And I think one thing that I just always try to let my students know is how happy I am that they are there with me, whether it's physically or remotely. Just saying that, the first few days of school, especially, the more positive you can be, the better, because it does set the tone for the rest of the year. So kind of on that theme of creating connections, this is something that I do in school, but it can also be done remotely. So at the beginning of the year in kindergarten, we're doing a lot of name stuff, right? And so one thing I love to do is have a student of the day. And I'll have like a jar of popsicle sticks with names on them, and I'll just pull one student, and they are the student of the day. Now, I don't start this on the first day of school. I might start it on like the second or third. I wait until I know who is not going to be embarrassed and really shy, because I actually don't randomly pick the first few. I like pretend to pick these kids, and the kids that I see that are more outgoing, that like to be up in front of the kids, those are the ones that I pick first for student of the day. But what it is, I just pick their name, very simple. They come up to the front of the class, And you can do questions first, you can do their name first, but I usually do their name first. And I will write their name on a chart. And so it's kind of hard to see in that photo, but I'll have like a big, just like regular chart paper, right? And I'll write their name. I write the first letter in a different color, like red, and the first letter of their last name in red. So I'll write their name, and we'll talk about their name, count the letters, concept of a letter, talk about first name, last name. We'll identify some of the letters. What does your name start with? So we're doing letter work, but we're also looking in depth at their name, which they love. So then after we talk about their name, and again, this is only one kid at a time, so you're gradually building that chart. This chart here would be over like 3 days of instruction when you've had 3 students of the day. So after you talk about their name, then I model asking the child questions. So what do you like to do at home? Or do you have any pets? What is your favorite color? Just basic questions that kids, like to know about each other. And that's a way for me to get to know them as well. And then, so once I've modeled asking questions a couple of days, the other kids understand what to do. So after the first couple of days, I stop asking them questions and I will ask, does anybody have a question for our student of the day? And then they can raise hands and ask questions. So you're accomplishing so much with this. You're giving them that special attention. Wait for the ones that are a little bit shy or uncomfortable till later in the school year to do this, because you're doing 1 a day. So if you have a number of kids, it'll take a month. But so you're building that relationship, you're making them feel special, you're talking about letters, counting letters, you're teaching them to ask questions. This just accomplishes so much. So I really love this student of the day routine. And you can do this remotely as well. All you really need is some kind of like paper or something behind you. You could even do it on like a Word document where you just type their names. I do like to model writing just because it's kindergarten, but you can do this remotely as well. And this will make them feel so special and really build that connection, even though you can't be there physically with them. Another thing I like to do, and I know that in some schools you actually can't sing this school year because it like sprays germs, but if you can sing, even if you're on Zoom, look for name songs. So Willoughby Wallaby Woo is one of my favorites. I will not sing it to you and break your ears, but look it up on YouTube. It's like a rhyming thing where you put in the kids' names. Anything where you can make that one-on-one connection, whether you're in school or whether you're doing it remotely, is so precious. Another thing I really like to do, in addition to me bringing lots of positivity and praise, I like to teach the kids to celebrate and praise each other. So they start doing this as soon as you encourage it. They can do this from the beginning of the year, and you can have special cheers. So you can, of course, applaud for them. One other thing that you can do is have them do something special, like a round of applause. So I don't know how big my picture is for you, but you can clap in a circle. It's a round of applause. Another cute one is hip, hip, hooray. So you have them take their like arm and put it on their hip. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. So again, I don't know how well you could see me do that, but it's hip, hip, hooray. I did not make this up. And they can't touch each other physically, but maybe you can do some air high fives. So the more you can get the kids encouraging each other, even if it's on Zoom, right? And you're just doing your round of applause on Zoom. Again, that's a way to make the kids feel like they're in a community and that the other kids care about them. I also wanted to talk about emotions, or talking with our kids about emotions, especially this year. Kids have been through a lot recently. Like, they've felt the stresses that their parents are experiencing, even if their parents have tried to keep things from them. They're feeling the things and they don't always know how to deal with them. I think about myself as an adult. Sometimes I don't even know how I'm feeling, or I don't even realize it. I can't imagine what a child is going through. And it's even worse if they don't know the words to express how they're feeling, or they don't feel like safe expressing how they're feeling. So especially this year, I would encourage you to kind of push off your normal curriculum a little bit, to push it off and focus on things like teaching feelings words. So I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling disappointed, I'm feeling excited, and help them understand that it's okay to feel all of those things. Two people can go through the same experience and feel totally different things, and that is okay. I think it's so important for us to teach them to understand what they're feeling, to acknowledge it. If they don't know how they're feeling, that's okay too. That's a perfectly acceptable answer. But to try to get them in touch with themselves as much as possible, I think is really valuable. This is a cute book. I don't know how to say the author's name, Jane and Kane, I think, but look up The Way I Feel if you don't have any feelings books, and revisit this many times at the beginning of the year for sure, but also throughout. And then once your kids do have the vocabulary to express how they're feeling, once you've read some books and talked about a little bit, what I would encourage you to do is have them check in at the beginning of the day, whether that's on Zoom, whether it's in your classroom, and just have them get quiet with themselves for a moment. And normally what I like to do is breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. However, if you're in class, you might not want them exhaling a lot of germs everywhere. So you could still do breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And then just give them a moment of quiet and then say, how are you feeling today? And that can be something that they share with a partner. Everybody gets to share when you have them turn and talk to a partner, even if they have to be separated from each other. That can be maybe something that they share with the class. It can be something that you model. I'm feeling a little bit disappointed today because X, Y, and Z. Obviously, we want to try to bring positivity, but it's okay for them to see you when you're having an off day and to see you express that as well. So I think that this stuff is always important, but more than ever this year, even if you're doing stuff on Zoom, encouraging them to learn to check in with themselves and put words to their emotions and express their feelings, I just think is so important because, think about how much all of us may be struggling. I know people, are reacting in different ways to all of this, but if you think about the challenges that you're facing, and now imagine that you don't have words for this, or you don't know if it's okay to express how you feel, that just adds another layer. So this is something that I would absolutely prioritize at the beginning of the year. Okay, so I hope that gave you some ideas and things to focus on with creating classroom community. And now we're going to shift to focusing on literacy. And if you're like me, you probably have a million questions, a lot of worries running through your head, and I totally understand. I'm right there with you. I think everybody feels like that. But part of us getting through this will be to focus on what's most important and doing those important things so that our kids still enjoy the process of learning to read and write, and so that they can be successful. So before we get into specific strategies and ideas, I want to talk about this metaphor, the way that I've been thinking about student learning. I want to compare student learning to a package that we've ordered online, like through Amazon. So when I order something through Amazon or another online store, I want that package, right? I want whatever it is that I've ordered. If it comes to me by a jet, great. If it comes to me in a train, great. If it comes to me on a truck, great. I don't care if somebody puts it on a messenger pigeon, right? All I care about is that I get my package. So I want us to think about student learning as the package. Kids learn to read in different ways, and we have different vehicles that we use to get them there, right? Maybe we do some guided reading a little bit later on in the year, maybe a read aloud, some literacy centers, but these routines that we have that maybe so many of us are used to, these are only a means to an end. So what we have to be willing to do is think outside the box. These are still great routines. These are still routines that I would recommend using, right? But we have to remember that there's many different ways to get the package there, meaning student learning, even if we don't have all the same vehicles that we've always used. So this is going to require thinking differently and focusing more on what do I want my kids to learn and how can I make that happen in the circumstances that I've been handed, right? So we're going to have to be a little bit more flexible with our instructional strategies to really think outside the box. So what I've decided to do is I have different things that you might be teaching in kindergarten, and I've laid out this little grid where we're going to be talking about what you might do pre-pandemic or in an ordinary situation. Oops. And then we're going to talk about how to do it in class with masks or social distancing, and then we're also going to talk about how to do it remotely. So I hope that this will give you ideas no matter what your situation is. So teaching the alphabet is what we're going to start with because we do a whole lot of that in kindergarten at the beginning of the year, of course. So something that I do with my kids is every single day, at least for a long time, we have some kind of letter chant. And there's different ways you can do this. So you could, what I'm holding up here, it's probably kind of small for you, and that's okay. It's just an alphabet chart. It has the whole alphabet and it has pictures for each letter. And so this could be something really simple. It could be like A, apple, A, B, book, B. It could be a song. It could be something on YouTube, but it's really effective to do something like that every day. Even better if you have a movement. So, you know, B says B, 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 book, right? There's your movement. So whatever you want to do, and there's lots of great ones out there, you want to continue that whether the kids are with you, whether they're with you with restrictions, or whether they're doing it remotely. Maybe you have a song, but maybe your school district has said no singing because that sprays germs everywhere. You can turn it into a chant, just like you heard me do. A, apple, A. B, book, B. You can turn it into a chant so that the kids, aren't singing. Another great thing to do is to pull up something on YouTube, because even if the kids, are all spread out and they can't be all in one circle because that's, the way it is this year, you can project that video. Hopefully you have some kind of screen that they can see, and that can be just a way to practice the alphabet every single day. Now, if you're doing this remotely, so the first thing I would do is to make a video of the chant, whatever you want them to practice, or to locate it. And when I say locate, I mean to look on YouTube or find whatever. And then I would send it home for families and say, I want you to play this every day, Monday through Friday. And, maybe you do it as a group sometimes, but maybe you just say, okay, now our lesson is over. Now I want you to go do the alphabet chant. And they do that with their families. I would also make sure that they get a copy of an alphabet chart. If you can laminate it or put it on thick paper, that would be helpful. If you're in a situation where your school district is saying remote learning only, I would beg your administration to see if you can get some hard copy stuff into their hands somehow, especially because it's kindergarten. There's just, I personally don't believe that at the kindergarten stage, everything should be digital. I know, again, this is a difficult situation and it's not ideal, but if you can get hard copies of things, alphabet chart is something that I definitely would encourage you to send. I've put one in your freebie in case you need one, but this is 100% a tool that you can have them use in many ways. We'll talk about how to use it during writing in a little bit. So this is how I would adapt the letter chant or song. I would still 100% do it. I would just modify no matter what the situation is. Okay, let's move on to another strategy that we might use to teach the alphabet, and that would be making letters with hands-on materials. Love having my kids make letters out of Play-Doh. Now, Play-Doh, I'm sure Play-Doh is like a breeding ground for germs. So what I did is when I was drafting our school supply list for the school, I had the little ones actually bring their own cans of Play-Doh. And if this isn't an option, maybe you're limited, or maybe the school supply list already went out, or you don't have, the funds to purchase them cans of Play-Doh, you could still, so here's what you could do. I would recommend buying one set, and then if you can, and then when the cans are empty, you can make your own Play-Doh. Just Google homemade Play-Doh recipes, and then you can still stick it in the can, even if you've already thrown away the original Play-Doh, but that will give them their own stuff to work with, and then they don't have to share. You just put a name on it, whatever. Now, if the kids are at home, I would still encourage them to physically make letters, and you're going to need to do videos so that the parents understand what this means. But maybe they have yarn, or you can send home yarn. Maybe you can send home a can of Play-Doh. Whatever you can think of for kids to make letters at home, that will be a great thing for them to continue doing, even if you're not at school to physically give them the materials. Okay, another thing that you might want to do if you're at school, we practice letters with shared multisensory materials. So we might have sand that everybody's using and we're all touching it. You might have shaving cream that everybody's using and touching. Obviously, right now, that might not work for you. So here are some possible solutions instead. One really easy thing to do is to give kids their own tray of sand or a little paper plate. So this is just a sturdy paper plate and I have green sand on it. And then the kids can trace letters or even numbers in there. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's probably small for you. And then they can just kind of shake it. And then each kid can have their own paper plate. Now it does get tricky with storage because you have to keep them flat, and I like to stack them ordinarily, so that might not work. But what you could also do that might even be better for this year is to have a gel bag. This is for sensory writing. And so it might be hard to see on the camera here, but there is maybe half a cup of hair gel, and I added blue food coloring to it. You can also add sparkles and stars. I have stars, but I lost them. And then what the kids do is they will write their letters on it. So you will say to them, what says D? And they write in it, D says D. And it's not going to show up very well in here on the screen, but they are writing the letter. And because the gel is colored, it moves around when they put their finger on it. And so as long as they're like holding it against a surface, they're not going to hold it up like I did, they will be able to see the letter. So this is a great thing that you can do. And then you can just write their name on it, and they each have their own little gel bag. I feel like for this year in particular, each kid is going to need to have their own little storage area. So then they just store this in a storage area. And although sand trays are my favorite, the nice thing about the gel bags, if you can see, I have like special masking tape on top of it. They don't have to be held flat. So, obviously you have to be a little bit careful, but these might be better for this year. Another thing that you can do is each kid might have their own set of bumpy letters. You could take index cards, and what you do is you write the letter with marker or whatever, and then you take either fabric paint or glue and you trace the letter. And then the kids are tracing the letter. A says A, and they're actually feeling the letter too. So it's a multi-sensory experience without all the sharing of germs. So here's what you could do. You could have like a little binder ring, like just you would get in an office supply store, and you could put multiple letters on the ring. It doesn't have to be all the letters. And then the kids are tracing, but they each have their own set. So that's how you could do it without sharing germs. Now, if you're doing this remotely, I would still really encourage, if you can, send home gel bags. I would just love it if we could all at least get some physical materials to our kids at the beginning of the year, because again, there's so much just hands-on stuff that needs to happen at this age. But maybe you can send home bumpy letters or gel bags. At the very least, you can teach air writing. So air writing is literally just writing in the air. But when I do this, I have my kids outstretch their entire arm, because there's been some research that shows that when we are engaging our gross muscles, meaning our bigger muscles, the stuff that we're doing is more memorable. So instead of just a finger in the air, we're reaching our whole arm out and we're pointing with two fingers. A says A. So they're writing with their whole arm. You can call it magic paint, magic invisible paint, magic spray paint, whatever you want to call it. But this is something that they can do at home. They can do it at school. I do this at school even when it's like a normal situation, normal circumstances. But if you're in a situation where you're like, oh my goodness, I have no multisensory materials, well, guess what? Tracing on the table or tracing in the air and verbalizing the letter name and or sound, that is multisensory. Multisensory just means using more than one sense. So even if you can't have your multisensory stuff that you normally like, you can still get that accomplished. Another thing that you might do to work on the alphabet would be to play games with the kids in centers or small groups, right? So normally that would be okay in a typical situation, but this year maybe you can't do small groups at all. Maybe the kids can't physically be that close to you. So you want to come up with independent alphabet activities, and you want to come up with stuff that's repetitive that you can do over and over again for every single letter. So for example, this is a material from my kindergarten literacy club from the July materials, I believe, but what they got is every single alphabet letter has one of these pages. They can use bingo dabbers, they can use highlighters, markers, crayons. They could even just use counters, right? They could put a counter on top of the letter U. So they find all the letter U's and then they trace the word that begins with the letter U. And then they can do that for every single alphabet letter. They don't have to do it all at once. They can do it as you introduce them. But if you have a routine that you're doing over and over again, great for just the kids knowing what to do. If you're sending stuff home with parents because you're doing remote learning, great for them. The more consistency, the better, especially because, we are teaching every letter of the alphabet typically. And so that just lends itself to having certain things that we do over and over again. So we can play little games, do things. It's just that they're going to look different, and they might be a little bit more worksheety than we're ordinarily comfortable with. But again, if we're getting the job done, if we're teaching them the letters, if they're having fun, we have to let go of some of those things that we would ordinarily really worry about because this year it's just different. So this is, I don't know how well you can see this, but it's actually, I used fabric paint here, and maybe I should have shown you the whole page, but it's an alphabet book. It's in the Kindergarten Literacy Club materials. It's in your Intervention Central materials, I believe, if you remember. But I took fabric paint and I went over the letter D. So they say D says D, D says D, but it's bumpy, so they can actually feel the letter while they're doing it. And it's an alphabet book. So they go through that and they do that for every single letter. So that's an example of like the sensory bumpy stuff that I was telling you about. Okay, so speaking of routines that we can do over and over again with more than one letter, picture sorts. You've probably heard of picture sorts before, but they are like my favorite. And the nice thing about these is they can do them at home. They could do them at school without touching each other. At home, it does get a little bit trickier because they're not necessarily maybe able to cut and paste, but maybe you can do something digitally where they're sorting pictures. But so I start this out as soon as we are introducing the first letter. So in this example, we're looking at pictures that begin with T, letter T, and pictures that do not begin with the letter T. T. So they're having to identify the first sound, sort the picture. Of course, if they are able to cut and paste, it's great for the fine motor stuff. And then as soon as they're starting to know some letters, I actually ask them to write a label for each picture. So not only are they cutting and pasting, but they're trying to write table. And are they going to know how to spell table correctly? No, but what they're doing is they're listening for the sounds. They're using an alphabet chart, and this comes back to why I was talking about how this can be used for so many different things. Maybe they're trying to write the word tent. What do you hear first? There actually is a tent here, so maybe that's not a good example, but let's look at like hen, right? That's supposed to be hen. So say the word, stretch it out, hen, hen. Okay, what do you hear first? All right, which picture starts with, so they have to look, hat starts with, okay, so that means I write the letter H. So they are using this as a guide to help them spell the word. And again, are they spelling it correctly? No, they are not. But what they are doing is they're learning their letters. They're using that letter sound knowledge. What we don't want to do is say, oh, well, they can write after they know their letter sounds. We don't want to say that because writing helps them learn their letter sounds. They're seeing, why is it useful to know these letters? Well, I can use the sounds to write words. I really encourage that invented spelling. And of course, eventually we do talk about how to fix spelling and spell words correctly. And it's not that I don't emphasize spelling, but at this stage, this is how they learn letters, is by using them. And picture sorts are great because they can sort the pictures. They can also attempt to write the words. These can be continued at home if necessary too. And if you need to make an instructions video for parents of what you're expecting, model incorrect spelling, model how to use the alphabet chart like I showed you. And a really good tool to have, hopefully your school will equip you with this, is a document camera. This is mine. It was less than $100. These are harder to come by now because of pandemic. My brand is IPEVO. It's very lightweight. I love it. I have it here at home right now. And you can, with a document camera, if you're not familiar, you can actually show them what you're doing. So you can do the picture sort under it. You connect it to your computer, and then they can see what you're doing. So this is a great way to give families visual directions, because sometimes I feel like when I write something, maybe they sometimes get it, but there's misunderstandings, even if it's the parents reading it. And when I show them that it's just that much easier, it makes that much more sense. So document camera is a really great tool for modeling stuff like picture sorts and so many other things. Okay, now let's talk about phonological awareness. So phonological awareness, as we all know, is a biggie, right? And normally, in a normal situation, we would be doing daily oral practice activities, rhyming, first sounds, segmenting phonemes. I would encourage you to get this into your instruction no matter how you're doing it. So one challenge is a mask, right? We might want our kids to see our mouths. Well, you could make a video if you don't have a clear mask or something where they can see your mouth. You could make a video of it ahead of time. There's also a link in your freebie to Phonics by Turtle Diary. And I believe all of those videos that have the different letter sounds, they show the mouth position. They show what their mouth is supposed to look like. So if you can't show them your mouth for some reason, or you just want families to have something to work on at home, look these up and show them the videos. I also think it's important to kind of explain what phonological awareness is to parents, because it's kind of a foreign concept, right? Like, unless you're an education major in college, like, you're not going to necessarily learn what phonological awareness is, or unless you're a speech and language pathologist. So this letter that I have for you that you're going to get in your freebie talks about, it doesn't go into the technical stuff, but it suggests some games that parents can play with their kids at home to work on phonological awareness. Another thing you can do is you can actually like video or audio record the exercises. So for example, you might just say, okay, I'm going to say 3 sounds and you tell me what the mystery word is. The sounds are and then you're just quiet. And the kids are supposed to tell their parents the word map. So you can still do those drills. It's going to be a little different, right? Give them a private link to YouTube or SoundCloud. When I say private, I mean choose the option so that like the whole world can't see it or get it. Then you can get them to parents via any sort of communication tool, text, email, Seesaw, however you want to get it to them, you can get it to them. Okay, so as I mentioned, this letter is in your freebie that you're going to be getting shortly here, and it just has those like suggested activities for them. We probably, if you're doing distance learning, if you're doing modified learning, you might not get to as much phonological awareness as you normally would. So spend time on stuff that matters the most. Rhyming is one of the easier activities. I teach rhyming, but you need to spend more time on phoneme work. So individual sounds. So like what I just did, blending, amp, segmenting, at, right? Breaking the words into their sounds. That individual sound work with the phonemes has been shown to be more powerful in just getting kids to be successful with reading and writing. And so if you have to choose, I would spend a little more time on that. You can also have them doing stuff at home, do videos where for syllables, we pound the syllables, caterpillar, right? We pound the syllables. We can chop phonemes. So a lot of times with kinder, I like to tap them out for the older kids, but at, hat. So we're chopping, you can do big chopping hands, whatever motion you want to do. You can also look up on YouTube to see different motions for phonological awareness. Teach that to the parents, have them do it at home, even if you're doing remote learning. Okay, something else that you probably would do in a normal situation is teach small groups. And a lot of times you might be using those small groups, even if it's not at the very beginning of the school year, to provide differentiated alphabet phonics instruction. Miranda, the parent letter is not in Spanish, but you are welcome to go and translate that. You absolutely can do that if you need to. So in our small groups, what we can do, what I like to do is after I've introduced all of the letters to my kids, I will then go back and review and work on the different like letters that the kids most need to practice or move ahead with advanced kids. I'll do that in a small group setting. So couple of creative ideas, things that you can do for this if you're able in your school situation. If you want to work on a specific skill with specific kids and you have technology, you could have some of your kids listening to books in an app like Epic, which is free. Have a lot of your kids listen to books with headphones, and then you can actually still teach your small group even if they're spread out. So if they're on their own little spots, the rest of the class maybe is facing one way. Have your other kids turn their chairs or move their bodies so they're facing a different way. And you are teaching those group of kids that don't have their headphones in. So it's a little bit strange, but it's something to try. And if the other kids hear what's going on, no big deal, right? It's just instruction. But if you want to try some kind of small group and you're having to have the kids be spread out, have one set of kids do something with technology so they're not, hopefully up and doing things, and the other group can focus on you. Another thing that you can do is preload folders or bins with materials for kids. So if you're like, okay, well, I've introduced all the alphabet letters, or I've introduced some of them, and I know some kids are actually maybe ready for CVC words. At the beginning of the week, you can have a folder for each of them and like put work in there that they can do. so that you can differentiate even if you're not necessarily doing as much small group instruction. When it comes to working with families remotely, you can schedule different times for different Zoom meetings where you do meet with your small groups, right? And you do a screen share and you show them alphabet letters and all kinds of things. It can feel really different, right, than in-person instruction, but it's not that hard. It takes time to prepare the materials, but it's not hard to send different families different videos because it's just a matter of pasting and sending to different families. So you can differentiate that way. Another thing that you might be accustomed to doing in a small group setting, as they begin to read a little bit more, and this might be on down the path, maybe not immediately, depending on how your kids come into kindergarten. But, a lot of that stuff happens in small group. But the good thing is that shared reading can also accomplish so much of that. So shared reading is when you have a book that all the kids can see the words and pictures. I don't mean a read aloud, because in a read aloud, they can't really see the words, right? They're too small. You can do shared reading with a big book. You can take a document camera and put a regular book under it. And so then all the kids can see your book on Zoom. And by the way, speaking of books, so I was researching this because I was confused, and I'd heard that you can't read stories aloud on Zoom and all that stuff. I'm not a lawyer, but what I found out is this, and you might already know this. You can't do read alouds and then post it on YouTube for the world to see. But if you're having a Zoom closed meeting with families, it is fair use. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but what I learned is that it's fair use to show books to kids via Zoom on the screen. So if you've heard any chatter about you can't share books on read alouds or whatever, as long as it's for educational use and you're not profiting from the book or anything like that, you can do that. It's just that posting to YouTube and things like that would be public are not okay. So just wanted to share that with you. Anyway, you can take a book that's a little bit harder than what the kids would be reading, maybe a level B at the beginning, and model how you do things like sound out words, model how you point under each word. The parents, if you're doing this remotely, will be learning right along with you. So you're actually going to be showing them things that they can then do with their students at home. So this is so valuable whether you're in school, whether you are doing remotely, to do that shared reading. And during shared reading, kids can actually be reading along with you. So maybe you do most of the reading on the first day, but then after that, they're reading with you. You can talk about high frequency words. You can talk about strategies like if you get stuck, go back to the beginning, try again, use the first letter. You can model so many things during shared reading that you might ordinarily do in a small group setting, but you can do it whole class as well. Another thing that you might do in a small group is to do word work, maybe with magnetic letters. So in your freebie, there's going to be DIY instructions for making your own magnetic letters. They don't have to be magnetic. They could just be tiles. So if maybe you can give your kids each their own set of magnetic letters, or just even letter tiles, just print them off, cut them apart, maybe put them on cardstock or thicker paper, then they can have their own letters even if they're not sharing. So that takes care of the germ issue. You just keep them, I like to keep them organized on a mini cookie sheet, but you can, have them, organize them however you want them. And then at home, this is one of those things that I would absolutely try to see if your admin can let you send home. And again, they don't have to be magnetic. They could be fun, right? Could be fun, but they can also just be on regular cardstock. And you can have the kids working with letters at home, even if they're not your typical magnetic letters that you would normally use. Okay, so now I want to move on to teaching writing. Keeping an eye on my time. We're getting close to the end. I just want to make sure that we get through all of this, but also have time for that giveaway before people have to leave. So I'm keeping an eye on the time. All right, teaching writing. So something that we would probably do at the beginning of the school year is, at the beginning of the year in kindergarten, we wouldn't be doing so much of teaching writing, but we would be doing a lot of teaching kids how to draw with details, right? So we would model, this is how I choose different colors, and this is how I draw eyelashes, or think about ears and tiny body parts. This is how I draw from my imagination. This is how I draw a picture of something that really happened. So probably in class, we'd be doing a lot of that. I would still encourage you to do a lot of that, whether you're in class with distancing or remotely. So, maybe your kids can't be in a circle, but you're drawing huge pictures on the board or chart paper. Just make it bigger so they can all see if they can't be close to you. It will still be extremely powerful. Use those think alouds. Excuse me, I'm drawing this because I want to add more details. I'm adding a background so that the person can see where the story is happening. Think aloud, explain what you're doing, why you're doing it. And the same is for home, right? We need to do lots of modeling on videos, and the parents actually need to see what's expected with kinder writing, because kinder writing is unique, right? We often are wanting them to draw and add labels, right? This is a tree. I'm going to try to write the word tree. We're not expecting perfection, and that's something that can be hard for parents to wrap their minds around. Well, my kid can't write yet. They don't know a lot of letter sounds. Well, they actually can write, because writing is communicating, and that communication can happen via drawing. It can happen by adding labels, and it takes time for kids to learn how to write, and we don't need to be correcting every little thing. So in your freebie, I have this parent letter that explains all of this. You might want to go over it with your parents as well. It's one thing to have it in writing, but it's another thing to really go over it, explain what it means, and create those videos where you're modeling what's appropriate for kindergarten writing so that the parents then see what is expected. Another thing that you're probably going to be doing is teaching invented spelling. So like I was saying with drawing labels on the picture sorts, you can teach the kids how to stretch out a word, look for the sounds, right, using the pictures, and then try to write it. This is something that I really emphasize, again, because it helps them learn to use their letter sounds. So then if you're doing this in class, same thing, right? You're probably going to want to have a larger alphabet chart so that the kids can see it better. And then what I do is and this is not just with social distancing, this is for any time, I model drawing with details, model that. After about a week or two, I start modeling labels. I'm writing dog, I'm writing sun, I'm using the alphabet chart. And then eventually I ask the kids to do it as well. And you're gonna have to do this via video if you're doing it remotely, right? Maybe you're doing it live with your kids and you have paper and you're writing on it then and there, or maybe you're making a video beforehand and sending it to them. But my hope is that this parent letter will kind of help you communicate about kindergarten writing to them, so that they just kind of have a sense of what is expected at this stage, because I know that even when I started teaching, I didn't really understand what kindergarten writing was supposed to be like. So for them, I think, I hope that this helps. Another thing that you might probably do in person, is to give them feedback. Now, this is tricky because in kinder, they aren't necessarily writing stuff that we can read. So, see if you can have them read it to you at a distance. If you're doing it remotely, parents can just take photos of the kids' work. It doesn't have to be typed. They can just take their phone and take a photo and send it to you. And then every so often, what I would do is actually make a video of you. And maybe this is accomplished with the document camera or just your phone. I would actually have a video of you giving them live feedback, telling them oh my goodness, I love that you wrote about this, or I loved learning about this, and giving them that video or audio clip of your feedback on their work. It takes a little bit of time, so you might not be able to do it all the time, but again, building that relationship. Another thing that you probably do during writing time or drawing time is sharing time. And I like to have kids share with a partner every day. And the reason for this is because if I just call on a couple of kids to share out, then fewer kids get to participate. But if I have kids first share with a partner, then everybody gets to share their work every day, which is really nice. Now, maybe the kids can still do that from a distance. They can maybe still have a partner. Another thing, again, with the document camera, one child comes up under the document camera, puts their work there, and then all the other kids can see it. So that's an option too. Now, this is something that would be really special if you're allowed to do it. But if your families are able, and you would have to talk to your administration and maybe get permission from the families, but if your families are able, they could potentially record the kids sharing and talking about their writing, and that could be shared with other students in the class. I know that my students always love seeing each other's writing. It inspires them, it gives them ideas, and we don't have that when we're not at school. But with permission, and again, you need to ask permission, the families maybe could record the kids talking about their work, and you don't have to have the kids' face in there, but then you could share that video with other families, again, with permission, and the kids would really enjoy seeing each other's work. Okay, so I think we've mostly gone over this, but just again, modeling so important, even for parents, and understanding them getting them to understand what we want the kids to do. Also make sure that when kids are writing stories, they don't have to finish, all in one sitting. They can do a little bit each day and then come back to it. Now let's talk really quickly about play. Yikes, right? Pre-pandemic, give me all the blocks, all the dramatic play. I think it's so important, but obviously with germs, it presents some challenges. So with table toys, maybe your kids can have like a little baggie of their own stuff. And again, maybe they have their cube and you can like put that in their cube and they have some toys. Could even do as a whole class or a larger group, imaginative play. Let's pretend we're at the zoo. Who wants to be an animal? Who wants to be a visitor? Kids are wired to play, and so they will be creative, and you will see play happening, I believe, even if they have to be socially distant. So I think that we can still encourage and create opportunities for play, even if it isn't what we normally have. Another thing that you could do is actually send stuff home to encourage families to engage in imaginative play. So I believe it's the July materials for the Kindergarten Literacy Club. Members get all these props for a pizzeria. And so you have things like a welcome sign and a pizza order. And you could actually offer this stuff to parents because this stuff can inspire creative play at home. Lots of parents and kids play together, but this might encourage them to use literacy in a new way, right? Like this says cheese, this says pepperoni, concept of word. You can help parents facilitate that play at home, and they might like having some of these props if that's something that you're able to offer them. Okay, now let's go briefly over how to teach routines at school. Some of this is just things that I do ordinarily, even if it's not like a regular school year, or even if it's not an abnormal school year, even if it is a regular school year, and some of this is specific to our current situation. With our current situation, what I would do is if you have restrictions now, I would assume that you're going to have restrictions all year, if we can even stay in school. And I would imagine what you want your routine to look like maybe 6 to 8 weeks into the school year. We all know at the beginning of kindergarten or pre-K, like things don't go exactly how we want them to. We don't even try to get the kids to be like, writing, for example, or sitting as long. So it takes time to ease into that. But I would imagine, okay, what do I want my schedule to look like 6 to 8 weeks into the school year, and write that all out. From there, I would break apart each routine, whether it's a new routine or a routine that you would do ordinarily, and ask yourself, what must students know and be able to do in order to be successful with each routine? And I break this down on a really minute level. So for read aloud, they need to know how to raise their hands. They need to know how to sit crisscross on the rug or however you have them sit. Obviously, it might be different this year, but just break it down. How will they get to materials? How will they know what's theirs? Like, break it down. That can help you organize not only your classroom, because you might have to reorganize things, but also figure out what procedures and routines that you need to teach. I would also encourage you, like when you're thinking about the beginning of the school year and teaching procedures and routines, to not try to do too much too fast. If we have a shortened schedule, I know some of us are partially at school, partially at home. It's tempting to rush and try to fit everything in, but I would encourage you not to skimp on building relationships and spending time, teaching even the smallest procedures before you move on. Because like I said, with listing everything out, kinders all need to know, like, here's how I use the restroom, here's how I wash my hands, especially this year. So spend the time that you need to teach those things, even if your schedule isn't as expansive as you might like it to be. Another thing too to consider, if you're not going to have like your typical literacy stations or centers or whatever, remember to alternate between quiet listening activities, and independent work. So when you're setting up your day, think about, okay, we've got to have like, oops, I did not mean to do that. Think about like, okay, we're going to have this lesson, but then the kids are going to do this. Maybe they're just doing like a Go Noodle brain break or playing with some table toys, but kind of alternate like quiet listening and more active, even if you're not able to do centers. So really list out your day and then break down procedures and routines to teach from there. Then there's assessment. Whole bag of worms there, right? I would say just pare down your normal assessment routine. If you're doing things remotely, just tell parents like, hey, I really need to know what letters they know. It's okay if they don't know any letters, but I need to know this. And so then, just display the letters on the screen and have the kid tell you, and that would have to be done one-on-one. If you're trying to do this at school from a distance, I would actually take poster board and write large letters. And then hopefully you can have an aide or somebody watching the other kids, but you can have the child stand away from you and read you the letters, even if they're not, right there. And then this kind of goes for assessment, but it goes for other things too. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You might not be able to assess as thoroughly as you would like to this school year, but something is definitely better than nothing, and your kids will still learn, right? We all know that. A lot of administration districts are all about assess, and assessments are valuable, but our kids are still going to learn even if we don't have the perfect set of assessments this year. Okay, I'm going to skip questions for now. This is a lot of information, but I hope it's helpful. I just want to get through the last couple of slides so that we can then do the giveaway before hopefully you have to leave. All right, so let's talk a little bit about remote learning. Some of us are starting the year like this. Many of us suspect that this will happen, that we will go to remote learning. So here's what I would do. Even if you're not teaching remotely yet, within the first weeks of school, I would still set up your communication procedures and expectations, and I would set them up such that they can be helpful now while you're in school, if you are, but so that they could also be beneficial if and when you go remote. So I would choose a tool, something like Remind, Seesaw, I've heard Class Dojo, something that you can use that will meet all of your needs, one tool where all of your communication can take place, and teach the parents how to use this. And also, in addition to planning ahead with your tool and starting to use that and train the families on that, I would also start teaching routines that kids can continue at home. So like picture sorts, that's probably something they could continue at home depending on what materials they have available to them. That letter stamping thing that I showed you, they could do that at home. Just start thinking about things that will benefit the kids if they're in class, but that they could also easily do at home. And then I kind of mentioned this already, but with your tools, keep things simple, keep things routine. That's good for the kids, but it's also good for the families because we all know families are busy. If you're doing remote stuff, just kind of be clear on how long activities should take, and don't plan for a full school day of learning. Make sure parents understand that. Make sure the parents understand that kids will need breaks. Make sure that parents understand that kids might want to know what they will be doing that day, that you might want to have some kind of schedule for them. Just those little things that make things easier at home. We also talked about this earlier, but a picture or a video is worth 1,000, 1,000,000 words, right? Like written instructions are helpful, but whenever you can use your document camera or make a video of yourself, whenever you can show that, absolutely do that. And it can be time consuming, and it gets easier over time, And then another tip, and I think I first got this tip from a member of our literacy clubs, let parents know what assignments will be for next week on Fridays so that they have the weekend to get organized and prepare. And even if you don't have everything ready, just kind of tell them like, this is what we'll be doing and this is what the week looks like. The more they can feel prepared, the more you can stick with routines. One communication tool, the simpler the better. Okay, so we have covered quite a bit. I hope now that you do have some ideas to help you create that warm and supportive classroom environment, even if you can't be with your kids, to help you just focus on what's most important, because we do have to make some brain shifts and do things that we might not ordinarily want to or need to do. I hope you have some ideas for teaching literacy in different situations, depending on, whatever your situation ends up being this year. And I hope you feel a little bit more empowered to get started with assessment and setting up your routines. I also know that you may still have some serious questions and concerns, right? Sometimes there's just not a great solution to the problems that we're facing right now. But I do want us to come back to this. There are some things that we can control. We can put our focus on those things. We can commit to showing up for our kids, to showing them love and finding small joy, even though this is a difficult situation. And I just want to encourage you and say that you absolutely can do this. And I also want to encourage you and say, don't forget to take care of you, because you do matter and your well-being matters and it impacts everybody around you. So don't forget that. Okay, so I mentioned a giveaway, and our giveaway is a 6-month membership to my Kindergarten Literacy Club. I have loved being on here with you for an hour. Going to answer some questions very shortly here, but I would also love to take this way beyond an hour, because we all know that this year is going to be challenging, and I would love to continue the support with you far more than what we've talked about here. So if you do have more questions, more concerns, would like more ongoing support this school year, if you'd like to be a part of our monthly webinars, Q&A sessions, get ideas from other kindergarten teachers, I would love to have you in my Kindergarten Literacy Club. So if you're not familiar with the Kindergarten Literacy Club, this is something that's unique from like a TPT product. You do get resources to use with your kids on an ongoing basis, but it's also really about support. So it's a membership group for teachers who work with students at a kindergarten level. You get ongoing support both from me and our wonderful community. We really do have the best members of the Kindergarten Literacy Club. Shout out to any members who might be here today. And this also gives you access to private monthly webinars. So I'll have like a little mini PD topic. As the year goes on, I will constantly be checking in with my members saying, like, what is your school doing? What do you need support with? And we're going to talk about more specific stuff, like how to use specific tools, and everything we talk about will be relevant to like distance learning or things that are going on, you know, at school with being physically distant, social distancing. So this is going to be really relevant to what this year looks like, teaching literacy during the pandemic. And sometimes we just talk about teacher self-care too. We had a whole session on that in May, I think. Kindergarten Literacy Club members, in addition to that support, they do get brand new literacy materials. They get it in an email on the first of each month saying, hey, your new monthly materials are here. Then they just log in and they download them. So this is what the monthly materials look like. This is the July materials. So anybody who either was a member before or joins or wins a membership this month, they get, they get all of these materials. And then on August 1st, they get all brand new materials. So the July materials were these alphabet sheets that I was showing you earlier. They have alphabet puzzles. They have little name booklets where the kids are like counting the letters in their name. There's different pages inside there. They get those literacy props for dramatic play literacy. So you get 4 activities every month. Now, you also, this month and continuing, as long as the pandemic continues, you will have a digital activity as well. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And I will be checking in with my members, and depending on what everybody is dealing with, you will have flexible options so that this is stuff that you can use no matter what your specific situation is. So you'll always get 4 centers activities. They just vary in what they are, and they're going to be really flexible so you can use them in your unique situation. Members also get 3 books every month. They're leveled texts, and you always get a digital version. You got this even before the pandemic, so we'll continue with the digital versions. You get lesson plans and little activities for those as well. And obviously at the beginning of the year here, it's just very basic, like school words and stuff like that. So it's good for developing vocabulary too, even if they aren't reading yet. And then we've talked about the ongoing support. So this was like a public webinar for everybody, but I do for my literacy clubs, I do just like kindergarten. So, you know, toward the beginning of every month, usually we will have a mini PD session, and that's where you can come and just get any questions answered as well, not just specific to that topic. Okay, yeah, so here's what I was talking about with the digital activity. So this month's activity was colors. So they're sorting by colors, they're building color words. You get a resource, get access to a resource that you can use on any device. That way it doesn't matter if you're using Seesaw or whatever tool you're using. As long as kids have an internet connection, they can do this activity. and you get at least one bonus digital activity, and I might be increasing that if we're, going toward more digital, you get at least one bonus every single month, as long as the pandemic teaching is going on. And then I also want to mention that this Thursday, so this is July 16th, I know that you might still have questions, and I will get to as many as I can in a minute here, but we're doing private Q&A sessions for the Kindergarten Literacy Club. So I want to say it's 3 p.m. Central. You will get an invitation, my Literacy Club members, but we're just going to do Q&A. So you have questions about your specific situation, come to the Literacy Club Q&A and get those questions answered. Okay, so I want to come back to this idea of you having support so that you can support your kids. And we all know that teaching has always been stressful, but this year does bring us a new level of challenge. And I want you to feel like you have support so that you can pour love and positivity into your kids, because if your cup is empty, then you cannot pour out from it, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. And so the purpose of the Literacy Club, yes, it's to get you materials, but it's also to be an emotional support for you, a professional support for you, and to free up some of your time so that you can be a great teacher, but also still have time for family, friends, and just taking care of you, which again is extra important during this time. I think I put this on a slide, so I'm not going to read it, but this is just some feedback that I got that really meant a lot to me. Jennifer is one of our Kindergarten Literacy Club members, and she just kind of described her experience being in the club. And this is exactly what I was hoping to create, so I thought I would share that with you, but it is on a slide, so you can read that. All right, so in 1 second, I'm going to pull up my list and pull some winners. But if you're not a winner, I want to share some information with you quickly about what a membership costs. A monthly membership is $14 a month. You can cancel anytime. It does auto renew so that you don't lose your materials. You can just pull out your information whenever you want. If you want to get a little bit more of a discount and you wanted to do 6 months, this is the giveaway prize, the 6-month membership. You get 1 month free if you do the 6 months, and then the annual membership is $126, and you actually get 3 months free if you want to do an annual membership. Also, one last little thing. So some of my Literacy Club members, you might already know about this, but I have a little bonus for you. You will get your monthly materials just as I showed you every single month. That is not changing, but I also actually have an additional bonus for you, just something special because this back to school season is kind of crazy. We have these I Can Work by Myself packets. That's stuff that the kids can do really independently without needing to be near each other. This is stuff that can be sent home. The Literacy Club materials, those aren't available in my TPT store. This one will be, but my Literacy Club members are actually getting it for free. So you're going to get the kindergarten and the first grade edition just in case you have any higher kids. And this is an example of what that bonus looks like. So again, Literacy Club members are going to get that in August. This is in addition to your normal materials. It's just a special, and in addition to the digital bonus, because you do have that digital bonus, it's just like another add-on, a little gift for going back to school to hopefully make it a little easier. All right, so let us do our giveaway. All right, so here's how it works. I'm going to go and pull a list of everybody who has been here live. If and only if you hear your name, I will ask you to let me know in the chat that you're here. So if you don't hear your name, I'm just going to ask you to clear the chat for a moment so that we have a space for our winners. And if your chat locks up for some reason, you can email me immediately and let me know, no big deal. But I will also need winners to email me so that I can set you up with your new 6-month membership. And that you're eligible even if you're already a member. We would just change your payment and give you the gift membership. All right, first winner is Maya. And the email to that, because I know there might be more than one Maya, is MayaRDavis@gmail.com. Maya, let us know in the chat if you are here, and then make sure to email me as well. Okay, Carrie Bing@gmail. Carrie, let us know if you are here. Christy, and the email address is, so this is Christy with a CHGAUGERCA@milwaukee.k12. Christy, let us know if you are here. I think it's Mikkel. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but it's Wiley M at d5.k12.mt.us. Let us know if you're here. Lakeisha T. Sims at Yahoo. Lakeisha, let us know if you're here. Pull one more. I'm gonna pull 6. 6 is my lucky number. Okay. Last one is Raven. Raven Man. I don't know if it's Raven Manrique 95 or Raven Manrique 95 at Gmail. Raven, let us know if you are here. Okay, so if you're not a winner, I still absolutely would love to serve you and support you in the club on an ongoing basis. The club is only open twice a year though, so there's a lot that goes into like preparing for new members and getting everything set up for you. So the next time the club opens will actually be January 2021. So just a heads up, membership closes Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday. Let me share the link with you. It's just kindergartenliteracyclub.com. So it's open through July 24th. If you're not sure if it's a good fit, you can always do 1 month. And then if you later want to change the membership, that's fine. As long as you're in, that's fine. It's just that next Friday, the join page gets taken down at midnight Eastern time. So just a heads up about that. And then it won't be back up until January. Okay, thank you for staying with me a little bit of extra time here. I'm going to go ahead and put up the freebie. If the freebie link does not work for you for whatever reason, not to worry. It will be emailed to you as well. So look for an email that has the freebie, the certificate. It should have the recording, assuming that this recorded correctly. I'll also have the slides link, the correct slides link. And that should be coming to you within 12 hours. So keep an eye on your email for that. If you don't see it within 12 hours and check your spam, you can email, it just like opened my email for me. You can email this address. I remember you used to be able to reply to the webinar reminders and it would get to me, but I don't think that works anymore. Not sure about that. So if you need to reach me, this is my email address. Sometimes it does take me a day or two to get back to you just because I have a lot of emails right now. But if you don't get this stuff via email, this is how you can reach me. And now what I would love to do is just answer more questions because I know that I missed a ton. Thanks for being patient with me since I did miss so much. But if you have a question, go ahead and retype it in the chat because they all got pushed down and I will just go scroll up and get to as many questions as I can. I will choose a cutoff time because I'm doing another one tonight. And if you can hear my voices going out a little bit, but I will stay and answer questions. And if you do have to leave us, thank you so much for being here. And I do hope that this was helpful to you. Okay. Thank you, Christina. She says, so many great resources. I am so glad that this was helpful to you. Jacqueline, yes, I just posted the link, the Literacy Club link again. Kathy said this was informative and reassuring. Awesome. I'm so glad. All right. Thank you, Becky. Okay, Martha's asking about Loom. So I love Loom. Loom is a free tool where you can make a recording of your screen. So if you watch the recording of this, again, assuming it recorded, you'll see like my slides, you'll see me. That's what you can create on Loom. And with Loom, you can also even just create a video of you. You can choose the option where instead of showing your screen, you can just show you. So you set up your laptop or whatever computer you have with a webcam, and then you could, have chart paper and you could be doing modeling or you could even be reading a big book. So many great things you can do with that. Maria, I only have the Kindergarten Literacy Club stuff in English. I'm so sorry. I do have a few things in my TPT store in Spanish. The TPT store is Learning at the Primary Pond, but that's different from this. Great, Flora, I'm so glad. Carissa says, will new members get the July materials annual membership? Yes, ma'am. So my new members will get, so you get all this stuff. You get the July stuff. You get the month you join, and from then on, you'll get the July digital bonus. And then on August 1st, you get more materials. So then you should hopefully have plenty to work with for the beginning of the school year. And you get this, and these are like 50, 60 pages. So you should have lots of stuff to get going and hopefully not have to worry about, the usual scurry to find materials. Janice, I don't really do math stuff. It's something that I would consider in the future, but most, as a reading specialist, most of my work is in literacy. Now I do work with both literacy, math, science, social studies in my new role. So maybe in the future. Scarlett, yes. So Scarlett says, if I register for 6 months, can you always upgrade to 12 months? Yes. The most important thing is just to get in before this date, because then the join page is down. And once you're in, you can change your subscription, and that is no problem at all. It's just that the join page, the initial join page, goes away after this date. Excuse me, I know I'm losing my voice. You are welcome, Carol. I'm so glad it was helpful. Susan, the first grade webinar is 7 p.m. Central or Chicago time. Tammy says a webinar about how to record videos would be awesome. So also too, if you're a Kindergarten Literacy Club member, I want to remind you that whether you've been a member or you join now, we are having a private Q&A. So if you have specific questions about like tech tools or how to make videos, come to this Q&A session, because this is something unique where we're not doing PD. We're just literally, members are asking questions and then I'm answering them, and then other members can contribute too. So it's just kind of like a great opportunity to work with multiple kindergarten teachers and get ideas from multiple people. And so after the pandemic kind of hit, we did a session like that, sort of like that. It was just focused on remote teaching in April, and people just said it was really helpful because everybody was sharing ideas, which is nice because, everybody does things differently and every district has different situations. So it's nice to have that community of different voices. Okay, Brittany teaches K1. Yes. So Brittany, I'm going to give you a link, and this is for anybody. It's not just for Brittany. I'm going to put a link in this chat where I have the Kindergarten Literacy Club, then I have first and second grade. First and second grade is combined so that you can differentiate more easily. But should you need that, I have a joint membership too. And I'm going to put that chat link there. Thank you, Ainsley. So glad it was helpful. So Jennifer says, how would you use guided reading books for small group instruction via virtual instruction? So that's a tricky one, right? Because with guided reading, if we're reading a book all at once, then it's a little bit easier because we can like chorally read. But it becomes a little bit trickier if you are wanting the kids to read at their own pace once they get there, right? They're not necessarily there at the beginning of the year. So a couple of options there. You could, like with these digital books, the members get like a PDF. And so you could have the parents either like print something or pull up in a different window or have on a device the book. And so you can do the introduction over video, but then the kids, instead of displaying the book via screen share, which you could do as well, so that the kids could read at their own pace, you can have the kids in a new window or on their device looking at the hard copy of the book. Now, one other option would be to give the parents this digital book for them to read either before or after your group. And then during the group, you read it together, but they also still have that chance to read it independently so that they're more challenged, right? Because some kids don't need you to read the whole book with them. They need that challenge of reading on their own. So different ways to do that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so Martha says, how does Loom work with a document camera? So with my document camera, Martha, what I do is I plug it into my computer. It's got the USB thing. And then I hit Loom and I hit screen record. And so whatever's under my document camera is being screen recorded on the screen. So that's how that works. So the freebie, yes, the freebie link I did send, but it will be emailed to you as well. And so if you don't get it within like 12 hours, just go ahead and email me, but also check spam because sometimes it'll go to spam and promotions. Okay, so Kelly, I'm gonna shout this out to anybody because I don't know what we're doing. Kelly says, any ideas for open house or back to school night if it has to be digital? I would say you could do something like what I did here with just a Zoom webinar with, this is not Zoom. This is another software that I have specifically so that all of us can be here together. But you could do a Zoom webinar as well where parents join that way. Thank you, Faust. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to try to grab some questions. Diana, yes, I will be emailing the kindergarten slides. That should come to you within a couple of hours. Jennifer says, what would be easier for first-time users, Loom or Google Meet? Okay, so they're actually different tools for different purposes. Loom is if you're making videos of yourself or your screen. Google Meet would be everybody coming in together. I'm wondering, Jennifer, if you were thinking about Zoom or Google Meet. And with those, I think Zoom is easier, but I think they're pretty comparable. Sarah, I haven't really done a lot with flexible seating, no, but I imagine it would have to be modified for this year for sure. Jacqueline says, do you limit the number of people in your literacy clubs to keep them from getting too large? I'm in some kinder Facebook groups that are huge. So Jacqueline, in the kindergarten literacy group, we have a kindergarten literacy club private Facebook group that is only members. So it's not, I don't feel like it's enormous. It's only members, teachers that are dedicated and teach kindergarten. So the Facebook group is limited that way. Catherine, yes, the certificate is going to get emailed to you within 12 hours, it should be. So Amanda, as far as managing other kids while doing small groups, at the beginning of the year, I actually don't do small groups in kindergarten because I want to be teaching all those procedures and routines. And I want to be developing the independent work habits. I'm just looking up a blog post for you. I want to be getting them to the point where they have some independent work habits so that they can be somewhat independent. And then I wanted to pull that blog post for you. Megan, could you, okay. Yeah, Megan, would you go to the blog and just search for like how to start centers at the beginning of the year in kindergarten? Because I have a post about that might be helpful for Amanda. Good, Kim. I'm so glad that you feel a little bit better. Tammy, not sure about the 5-year-olds that have to wear masks. I'm curious if anybody else has already experienced that. Laura says, I use Remind with parents. I see some others. Seesaw is very comprehensive, so that's why I like Seesaw. But Remind, if you want to keep things really simple and literally just text stuff, I think Remind is great, but Seesaw lets you send videos, Google Docs. I think kids can like write on stuff in there. It just has so many more like options and things that you can do. I know I'm behind on comments, slowly scrolling up. The letters that I showed you, Amanda, for the parents are in the freebie. So I'll put up the freebie again, but it will be emailed to you as well. Okay, so Daniela says when you introduce letters, do you do it weekly or daily? So I normally do 2 letters a week, 3 letters like toward the end, but that's how many I normally do. So it's like 2 letters for a couple days, or 1 letter for a couple days. Excuse me, 1 letter for a couple days, then we compare the letters too. You're welcome, Sonia. Thanks for tuning in. Bree says, I love the alphabet chart. Any chance we can get an option without the Easter egg? So the reason it has that on there is because, and this is from my phonics program. It's it's supposed to be eggs. So the reason why it has a little boy on there, we could do like, I think I have another option somewhere with just eggs, but the reason why that one is because it's the boy for eggs. Rashonda says, if you upgrade, do you pay twice or the difference? Rashonda, you would just, if you want to upgrade, just email me and then we'll help you with that so that the payment evens out. Becky, yes, the monthly membership does auto renew. I'll put the link back up. That way you don't have to worry about putting your payment in every single month, which would be a pain, but you can also take it out at any time. Tyra, good. I'm so glad this was helpful. So Amanda, when you log in, you will have July materials and onward. So for example, you wouldn't have like January materials, but you have webinars that I've recorded on different topics. You have like intervention materials. You have a lot of goodies. They're just not the monthly materials for the months that you haven't been a member, if that makes sense. Mary, yes. So if you join now, you do get this stuff because this is coming in early August is when I'm going to be sharing it with you. So members will still get their normal, beginning of August materials, and then they're also getting this as a bonus. Okay, so the Q&A is Thursday the 16th And pretty sure, let me just double check this, but I'm pretty sure we're doing kindergarten at 3 p.m. Central, and it will be recorded. So I think I forgot to mention that, but every single time we do a webinar in the Kindergarten Literacy Club, it gets recorded, it gets uploaded to your membership, so you can come live. Maybe you don't have time, but it's always there in your membership. Like the recordings for these, the link disappears or it doesn't work anymore after a week or something. But with the Kindergarten Literacy Club webinars, you have access to it as long as you're a member. And let's see, we are in July. So yes, Kindergarten Literacy Club Q&A, Thursday, July 16th at 3 p.m. Central. Jennifer, yes, the Q&A is just for our members. So as a member, you would get a link to join that Q&A, and it's actually a Zoom link that we use for those. Erlinda, so user-friendly app, I would say Seesaw. You know, I don't know all the things, but I like Seesaw a lot. Okay, Sarah says, how do I register? Do you mean, Sarah, maybe you can clarify, do you mean for the clubs, or let me know if you meant something else. Awesome, Leticia says, thank you, just joined, excited to be part of it, wonderful. So Mary, I know I'm like behind on the chat because I'm just scrolling up, but there is that link that I put earlier for Mary or anybody else that has the joint club if you need kinder first and second. Thank you, Joanna. I have a scope and sequence. So I'm just going to give you the scope and sequence from my phonics program that shows the order that I teach letters. So this is for Joanna or anybody else. That's the scope and sequence if you want it. Karen, no, I don't think I have a list of favorite storybooks compiled, but I do have, actually in the Kindergarten Literacy Club, I do have what I have is a, so once you log into the club, if you go to Literacy Essentials, there's a whole big list of books, and they're grouped by like topic, mentor text. So I do have that in the club, I do. Patricia, for the alphabet sheet, make sure that when you're printing it, you want to print on, you want to use the print as image option. So if you go to your printer settings and change that, that should work. Mindy, yay, so excited to have you, awesome. Melissa, for the document camera, so I don't think you need any other software, but like with this thing, it said, it had a little QR code and it said download manual and software and it gave you the link. So there is like a little software thing that I downloaded online, but it was free and that was all I needed. Thank you, Jen. I'm so glad it was helpful. Jamie, yes. So she says, do you have a Facebook page for teachers to collaborate? So for the Kindergarten Literacy Club, we have a specific group and that's the one that I'm mostly in, but I do have just a general free group as well. And it's just called K2 Literacy. So I'm not really in that group quite as much as I am the Literacy Club groups, but that's great for collaboration. So here is the Facebook group. But then if you are a member, don't forget to join the Kindergarten Literacy Club group because that is specifically for members. Oh, that's hard. So singing was hard on Zoom. We would be at different points in the song because of technology. Yeah, that is hard. I would maybe try a chant or maybe just send them a video they can watch on their own. You're welcome, Martha. Thank you for coming. Okay, Kelly says Title I school. Got it. I am thinking that Kelly, the kindergarten club would probably be the best fit. And then Kelly, if you needed to switch, that is an option too. If you need to switch mid-year, that is an option as well. Okay. Is junior K the same material? So I don't really have something specific for junior kindergarten, but I do know that we have some transitional or junior kindergarten teachers in the Kindergarten Literacy Club. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. Faith says, if I join the club for a month, which month will it begin? July. So you'll be a July member, which means you'll have July on. Awesome, Jacqueline. So excited to have you. So Catherine, the membership begins on the first day that you join. So if you join today, that means that on the 13th of every month, it would renew. And it also means that you've accessed the materials right away. Amanda, yes. So Amanda, I'm assuming you're asking if the Kindergarten Literacy Club stuff would work with your scope and sequence. And yeah, because like with this stuff, you know, you choose whatever letter you're working on, your name booklets, like it's not specific to any one scope and sequence. The scope and sequence that I shared is just for anybody who wanted a scope and sequence, but that's for my phonics program, which is different. And whatever scope and sequence you're doing, these materials are designed to be flexible for sure. Yes, Debbie, the letter to parents is being sent via email for sure. Frida, I'm not 100% sure. Thank you, Megan. I think you answered Frida. Sarah, yes, come to the Q&A session on Thursday, July 16th in the Kindergarten Literacy Club, and we can talk about, you know, Loom and all those specific tools too. Awesome, Jamie, Jennifer, so excited to have you. All right, guys. Hopefully I didn't miss questions. Yeah, if you see a couple other questions, then I'll let you go so I can rest my voice for tonight for the first and second grade one. Tina says, do you laminate the ABC tiles before you attach them to magnetic paper? No, but I put them on cardstock, so they're pretty sturdy. Kim, scope and sequence, I just stuck in the chat and I will put it again here real quick for you. And again, this scope and sequence doesn't have anything to do with the Literacy Club. It's just for your information if you need like a scope and sequence for teaching letters. Jennifer, yes. So the Q&A, you will get a link the day before, and it will have that link to join the Kindergarten Literacy Club Q&A. Yes, ma'am. All right. Yes, Janice, I will post the link for tonight as well if you want to come to first and second grade. The content is different just because there is its own little special world. Yay, Joanna, so excited to have you. Caroline, yes, I put the link there. All right, well, I will let you go. I'm going to rest my voice for tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that it was helpful. I also hope to see you in the Literacy Club this year. I would love to support you on a more ongoing basis. Hopefully chat with you during our member Q&A this Thursday. And just a reminder too that this only happens once a year. The clubs only open, twice a year. So they will not be open again until January. So if you're thinking about joining, just keep this date on your calendar. It's not this Friday, but it's the next Friday, so that you make sure that you don't miss the deadline. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time and hope to see you in the club. So have a great rest of your day.